Hello, hello, hello. This is Misty Magdalena Grace with the new and improved version of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, where we talk about spirituality, psychedelics, plant medicine, microdosing, and really that journey within to finding your best innate wisdom, to your best health, your best wealth through all sorts of inner child healing, trauma release, grief recovery, overcoming addictions, and working with the mind, the body, and spirit. So go ahead, leave a review, subscribe, download. We look forward to your feedback. Thanks for tuning in today. Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is part two. And so don't worry if you didn't hear part one. I'm going to kind of catch you up to speed. Welcome back to another episode of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. I again have my favorite guest. I'm a little biased though. My husband, Emmanuel, is going to join us. And, we're sharing some new content. It's a little bold, maybe a little brash. My podcast is about spirituality and a whole host of things to help expand your consciousness. So we do want to reiterate that some of the content is going to be, especially this month, because it's Women's Empowerment Month, we're going to be having some explosive conversations on how to really reclaim your sovereignty, reclaim that truth. We call it here at the Lotus Throne Sanctuary, the lotus flower is like that death, rebirth, renewal. Some might even call it resurrection of your higher self, your truth. And that throne that you sit on is called throne that represents your personal sovereignty. We've been living in an era, the Aries era, then the Piscean era that's coming to a close this year. That was all about power, greed, war, poverty, scarcity, not enoughness. And we spoke last week, and we'll give like a really quick update, Emmanuel. I just want to kind of set the stage for the conversation for today. We talked last week about revelations and channeling messages that my husband, who is a channel, he's a ghost whisperer. He channels divine beings, entities, aliens. He's a powerful medium and shaman, and has these amazing gifts. And he's been, kind of holding back. And I've been waiting for the right time to bring it up. And really, this is no time like the present, as we're in the age of Aquarius. We'll be fully in it at the end of the year. And then we talked last week, we referenced something called 5D ascension. That's important, but we don't want you to focus on that. This is really about what's happening on the planet, in the world right now. A lot of war, a lot of poverty, a lot of suffering. And there's going to be some big shifts and changes. Possibly you're already seeing them in your life, whether it's a health challenge, a financial issue, maybe you're moving, maybe you're breaking up in your relationship. All of that is on the table right now. And I've seen it time and time again with our clients, ourselves, and the world around us is feeling it. So Emmanuel, why don't you share briefly who you are for someone maybe they've never heard us before, and then the short note, the Cliff Notes version of what you shared last week of your channeling revelation. Oh shoot, I'm so sorry. You know what? You were muted. Start over.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I am Emmanuel, Magdalena's husband, and over the past 3 years or so, I've discovered a very powerful side of my own self, of my own identity, which was not obvious or apparent to me any time before that. So I'm getting close to my mid-50s. So I pretty much spent about 50 years of my life working as a regular guy in corporate and government agencies, doing some pretty high-profile software engineering, systems engineering, IT kind of work, like what your ordinary IT or, geek guy would be, spending his life doing. And then 3 years ago, some very interesting things started happening to me as we were entering the pandemic. As a result of those events, I've kind of opened myself to a spiritual side of my being by reconnecting with, I would say, the wisdom of my ancestry, as well as my own, divine connection, because I do believe very, very strongly now that we all have that. But for me, it was the opportunity to really rekindle that flame within me. And as I've done that, I've find myself being called to becoming what we call a ghost whisperer or a rescue medium. A rescue medium is somebody who helps souls who have not crossed into the light, call it the light heaven, the afterlife, whatever you want to call it, cross over and not be stuck in limbo in between worlds. So I've done that. I've got, I think now 350 souls that I've helped make that beautiful journey to the other side. And also, I've deepened my shamanic abilities, which is communication with the spiritual realms, where you're going to find, deities, both male and female, as well as other entities that don't necessarily look like human beings, like dragons and, all those mythical creatures, fairies and that kind of stuff, which seems like, fantasy from Disney World, or, what other child book you may think these things belong to, but guess what? They're real, and it takes a special kind of experience and training to be able to become aware of them. And I went through that training, and I awakened this ability within myself. So I do healing ceremonies with my beloved Magdalena for different aspects of human shadow work, as well as encouraging people to develop their own, spiritual gifts, whichever ones they could be. So it's kind of a summary of who Emmanuel is.
Did you want to share the message, the Cliff Notes version of what we shared? And that might be just a perfect segue to explaining why today we called this title of the podcast "Our Mother Who Art in Heaven," because I'm sure it's very shocking and confusing to so many.
Oh yeah, that was done on purpose, of course. Last podcast we started talking about a very important message, which something that I had encountered a few years back, but never really fully embrace the profound implications of it, which is that, and I'm going to say it the way it is, this universe that we are part of, with Earth and the sun and all those planets and galaxies, this visible universe, that the scientists are discovering and trying to explain. We have always thought, myself included, that it was created by a male god, like, we call it the Father. Well, I discovered that was not the case. It was a divine mother who created this particular universe. It doesn't mean that there is not a divine father. They are there, and they have their, their polarities that are part of the totality of the divine. But this very particular universe that we live in was created by a divine feminine power, which I call Divine Mother. She has different names. Sometimes she's called Sophia, Shekinah, depending on the tradition that you connect to, the name may vary. But yes, we are the creation, this body, this world, this place that we are using to communicate and be in contact with each other was created. Every single atom, every single particle in that world was created by a divine feminine goddess.
Yeah, and so I used to say that we never talk religion on our show. Well, today we're going into what I'm going to propose, and Emmanuel, I'd love for you to maybe share a different perspective on this because of who you are and what you're capable of. We don't talk about religion from the standpoint of this religion is right or this religion is wrong. None of that. We're coming from more of the I don't know, maybe the metaphorical, mythological stance on this.
I'll call it just spiritual. It's a spiritual experience, a spiritual journey that we have undertaken, both you and I. We never seen ourselves as belonging to a particular religious tradition, though we have had beautiful teachings from different religious traditions around the world, but I don't see myself as a particular religious creed, witness, or faithful follower. I believe in the divine. I have absolutely zero doubt that the divine exists. I actually had an opportunity to encounter the divine face to face, and it's a pretty intense experience when that happens. So I have, beyond the shadow of a doubt, the certainty now that we are creations of the divine. And I can tell you that when the divine created all of this, the divine was not thinking about a particular religious title to tag to whatever it is that the divine was creating. And across all religions, all cultures, and I will go to the extent of all planets, we connect all back to the same creator, which is, again, as I said, divine feminine goddess.
Yeah. So for those of you who have been following, like we have talked about 5D, Divine Feminine, Age of Aquarius, Awakening Planet. Some people would even call it the Revelations. Like I know people are referencing the book of Revelations from the Bible. We're all more or less saying the same thing. It's just your perception of it. So I do want to be respectful. If you don't agree with us and what we're saying is weird, it's okay, because we understand that this is a lot to take in. But last week we shared that revelation, that awareness that this world was created by a woman. And then what happened was the masculine energy, we'll say, got really upset and angry and created what we now call the patriarchal system that really started with the age of Aries. I'm not going to get into all of the astrology or any of that, but this is what we've studied. This is what we've been taught. And since then, so roughly about 4,000 years, and then coming through the Piscean age, which is the era of Jesus and Buddha, and a lot of the masculine leadership, women were seen as, I guess, lack of a better term, objects, submissive, less than, you get married, you provide, the household duties, the babies, and the men work and provide for the family. So there was this like patriarchal system that was created, and through that process, right, a lot of women were subjugated, a lot of women were burned at the stake, raped, killed. Many were called witches. The whole, in Germany, that's where it all started, and that time frame. But even before that, there was stories in the Bible that the church has hidden and sort of crafted, and there's been a lot of books in the Bible, like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, that were shut down and put away, and a lot of things are hidden in a lot that we're not going to get into, but this is factual, documented stuff. And you have some examples that you want to share that is showing what happened for those women of the past, and also what's changing now. So I'll let you take over.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with a very personal example. I think that one is very powerful, and it has to do with my encounter with the divine. So a few years back, I had what's called an NDE, which is a near-death experience, where pretty much I think I clinically could have been declared dead, but I just came back from that experience. Luckily, that's the reason why I'm here, talking to you guys and sharing those beautiful things that I saw when I was on the other side and everything that happened to me afterwards. So anyway, to give you a quick context, during my NDE, and a few days before, I actually was visited by a divine entity, because I think 2 days before the NDE, who introduced herself to me. I knew it was a female energy presence, and I discovered that female divinity name was Ashira. I didn't know anything about Ashira back when that happened. But I started doing some quick research during that, shortly after the encounter, to understand a little bit more about who Ashira was. And I discovered quickly that she used to be referenced in the Bible back at the beginning of the story of the Hebrews. There were two deities. There were a male deity, the one that's currently known by all the Jewish traditions. And there was also a female deity that was a counterpart to that male. Sometimes we call them consorts. And her name was Ashira, who disappeared, interestingly enough, from most of the traditions of Judeo-Christianity, because of the rise of the patriarchy, because they didn't want to have to worship a god and a goddess. They wanted to only worship a male god, because the patriarchy energy was ramping, pretty much on steroids, and was trying to eliminate any kind of thing that will give women a sense of empowerment. So the goddess Ashira, who visited me, was precisely that goddess that almost was erased from the traditions of Judeo-Christianity. And I didn't really know why she came to visit me. Now I understand precisely why, because it's connected to what we're talking about today. But that's happened a few years back. And I think the next day after meeting her, I died in my sleep. And surely enough, I go to the other side. And it's all beautiful, a lot of light, a lot of love. I mean, and to levels that I cannot even begin to explain. I don't even have a word or a referential, conceptual reference to describe that. It's above and beyond anything that we can imagine or dream of. And I was in the middle of that splendor of the afterlife, of the presence of the divine. And I see that, sure, our same voice that I had heard a few days before, standing right there, telling me, well, welcome to the afterlife. Call it heaven if you want. This is it. You're on the other side. And I was like, holy moly. And I was thinking, where's the big guy? Right? We've been praying. I was raised Catholic. Our Father who are in heaven. I'm like, where's the big guy with the white beard? I want to see the big guy. I've been praying him for the majority of my life. Where's the big guy? Well, I see a divine woman, in front of me. And she didn't answer that question, of course, because she knew I had more things to understand about this whole story. But she gave me the choice to go back if I wanted to continue to do more work on myself and, help people around me when the time comes, or to stay and enjoy the afterlife. And I made the choice to go back because I was still I was there, I'm still now very committed to my family life, to my spouse, Magdalena here, and the children that I have. And being a father, I didn't want to disappear from the life of my kids just like that. So I asked her if she could send me back, and she did that. She said, okay, go back. And we're going to continue our relationship while you stay in a human body. And, when the final moment comes again, we'll be back, and now you can rest when you're done. And I said, yes. And I went back, woke up from whatever state of death I was in. I'm not going to go into the details of what happened at that time or shortly after. It's not the point of this discussion. But that was my first realization that, yes, there was a divine feminine that had an incredibly important role in this world. And this is precisely what she wanted me to know, not just hear it from a book, because there are a few books out there who talk about that. There are authors who've talked about this. There is a book here that we received recently. It's called Guardians of the Dragon Path. This is an incredible book. I recommend it to anybody who wants to know more about the power and the lineage of the divine feminine goddess to read that book. It starts way back into antiquity, as I was saying, even before the Jewish nation, to Egypt, and before that, all the way to today. And this book tells you way more about how that tradition of being connected to a divine goddess has survived through the persecution of the church and other institutions who are trying to eliminate it. But that's it. That was my personal encounter with the goddess who created me and everybody else around us and the world that we live in. Personal encounter. And guess what? She got eliminated from the story of the Bible. I had to go through what I went through to truly be awakened to that reality and that truth. That's example number one.
Yeah, and that's the first example. And just to kind of reiterate, for a lot of us who had what we call the religion wound, we were taught to worship things outside of ourselves. So, worshiping God, not being inside of us. I've had Franco Romero on here many times that we all are a God spark, whatever you want to call it. We are all fractals of God. And, every single one of us has that light within us. We have that divine light. We have what they said in the Bible, the kingdom of heaven lies within. However, most people feel, and I've talked to thousands of people in my time, in my career, is most people struggle with authenticity. And a lot of us struggle with imposter syndrome. A lot of us are following the herd, the sheeple syndrome, right? That essentially religion and churches created. You have the figurehead, you have the guru, or in the Piscean age, you have Jesus, we have Buddha, but where are the women, right? And why are people going, and maybe, but again, I don't mean this in a negative way, but in my experience and the pain that I've seen the religion wound called killed me, honestly. And I see it time and time again. I've lost many friends to suicide and addiction because people are lost. They know there's more, but they don't understand it because we've been kind of put into a box and following this patriarchal system. And so once we discovered, oh my gosh, more about the feminine energy, the divine feminine, and this goddess, what he's talking about, we recognize now in other examples that you're about to share, there was more to the story that also helped subjugate women and shut down the truth. So maybe share the
Yeah.
Lilith and Eve example.
Yeah. So another very powerful story at the onset of creation. And I know, I'm gonna just think about this, if you want, from not necessarily word for word, like literal explanation of what happened in history. I think these were used to express the reality of those things we're talking about, the suppression of the divine feminine. Everybody knows the story of creation in the Bible that talks about Adam and Eve, right? Okay, we know that the evolution was a little bit more complex than that, and there are a few more actors who took part into this. But the concept that was being promoted was the concept. There are two parts to it. First of all, Eve was supposed to be like a submissive wife to Adam. So that was the concept of the female came out of the male, and then the female was supposed to be perhaps equal to the man, but still in a more submissive way. That's the story that we've all heard. Well, when you go into some of the ancient traditions of that part of the world, back into the land of Canaan, as well as some of the ancient Egyptian traditions, they'll tell you that there was a different first woman, and her name was Lilith. And if people hear the word Lilith, most of you are going to run away. And I was raised to fear Lilith like the plague, like the Black Plague, because she's been demonized in the majority of, again, a Judeo-Christian tradition, portrait Lilith as some kind of queen demon who's there to, steal our souls and condemn them to eternal damnation for all of eternity. What happens that Lilith actually was the first archetype. I'm going to use that word to represent some kind of if you want, a template of a particular kind of energy or a particular kind of vibration that was feminine in nature, but was part of this particular realm. This happened in this realm here, the world that we live in. There was an energy that was present that was named Lilith. That's the name that the ancient referred it to. And Lilith was supposed to be Adam's first, wife. And Lilith and Adam were created equal, that mirror of the masculine and the feminine in perfect balance. But happens that Lilith was very independent. And that story of Lilith is not surprising because the goddess that I met, her name also referred to as Sophia, is known to be a bit of a rebel, to have kind of her own mindset or own desire to experience and to create. That's the reason why we were created. It's a creation. She's a creator, extension of the combination of the male and the female, but there was this female aspect that's very powerful in what comes to creation itself. So Lilith was still very independent. And when asked to be more submissive to Adam, refused to do so. Very similar to what happened one level above with Sophia, which is the divine feminine goddess, was asked to use her free will to choose to be submissive to the will of her counterpart, the divine masculine. And she said, well, but I'm a divine entity. Why don't I go in and create new things, something different? Why do I have to submit myself or subjugate myself? And that created this whole story that now we hear, where there was some fall from heaven. He was that first, I won't call it a rebellious, he was just a very independent and very empowered nature of the divine feminine energy who wanted to stand on her own to be able to do things. Not that she was excluding the divine masculine, but she says, why do I have to submit myself to the divine masculine? Why can't we both be equal and do things? Well, in the Bible story, they kicked Lilith. They say Lilith was kicked out. They demonized her. She became the leader of the demon. And the divine masculine was created a new wife who was called Eve, who now was supposed to be more submissive to Adam. And guess what? The story goes a little bit further than that. And a lot of people don't realize that the snake in the Garden of Eden story, they say, oh, it's Lucifer, it's the devil. Truly, they referred to the snake as another Lilith. It was Lilith coming back to tell Eve, hey, guess what? There's a lot that you don't know about what you sign up yourself into. Let me help you have a more holistic understanding of the whole situation here. And of course, through the traditions that we received, that was again cast as something bad. And because the apple was given, and Eve took the apple and gave it to Adam, and they both ate from that apple. They got cast out of heaven, and then all the plagues and misery of our human existence came out of that because of, again, the fault of two characters, Lilith as the snake, and Eve as the one who listened to the snake and beat the apple and gave it to Adam. The very easy way to vivify the female characters or female potentials from any kind of spiritual tradition or religious tradition. This is another very big example that, unfortunately, I swallowed that story, maybe not literally, but somewhere within me, when I was educated as a Catholic Christian, I saw that all our misery came from a woman. And I also had somehow some of the seeds of, I was being programmed to not necessarily see a woman as being somebody of an incredible influence and even spiritual presence and authority.
Yeah, which is very profound. This is a nice just moment. I'm just going to quickly announce this month is Women's Empowerment Month. So this is also why we're talking about this. And this month I have a sex coach coming on, a woman who's going to be talking about the power of sacred sexuality. Okay. Also have a woman who's a divine goddess coach, and she channels Lilith. She has a book about Lilith. So everything you're talking about is in there and then some. And there's one more thing. Oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart. Yes. And an ex-Jehovah's Witness female who's now a psychedelic assisted therapy coach. She's a good friend of ours and has done a lot of work, and she works with trauma and that whole religion wound and suppression of women. And keep in mind, we're not just talking about actual suppression of women like myself. We're talking about the feminine energy being shut down. And so even like it's funny, the snake that you're talking about, Kundalini yoga, you talk about the Kundalini awakening. There's the snake, that starts down at your root chakra and crosses over all the way up to your spine. I mean, even medical doctors have that symbol, right? And it's really about bringing the sacred union of the masculine and feminine together in a healthy way. We're not down on quote unquote God or the church or religion or patriarchy per se. It's more about, we need to speak the truth. The truth may set you free, but first it might piss you off, like it did both of us when we realized that a lot of the stories and the belief systems that surrounded us, at least for me, almost the first 3 decades of my life, and I think kind of about the same for you, were fabrications and not the true, as we like to call it. So the one universal truth that we want to tell you is the feminine and masculine can coexist inside of you. You've got to heal both of those energies. And the feminine is coming back to rebalance this patriarchal, wounded, war, poverty, control, power, greed energy. And that's why the world feels like this right now. If you're not watching me on the video, it's just like we're all topsy-turvy, polarity central. I'm right, you're wrong. The war, the suffering, and the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. You see the polarities here, and we've had more racism over the past few years with George Floyd and all of those types of things happening in the world. Is we want to all come together with love and compassion, and so embrace this time. And we probably don't really need to go too much longer. I feel like you shared a lot of revelations. Do you want to say anything about Mary Magdalene and
Yes,
Jesus?
absolutely. So another big one also about our beloved Lord Jesus, which is one of my guides, and we work very closely. That may be a bit of an encouragement for people who love Jesus. Jesus is a good guy, is a good God. And Jesus and Mary Magdalene were together. We know that now, Magdalena and myself, as a couple. They were, we call them avatars of the sacred union, which were supposed to be precisely an embodiment of this feminine and masculine energy. But the beautiful thing about these two is that they had within themselves accomplished the full perfect balance of these two energies of masculine and feminine. Jesus had it. Mary Magdalene had it. That's one of the reasons why they were possibly they became together. They became a couple. They had a lot of teaching that they both received from traditions that acknowledge the divine mother goddess as the origin of this reality. but they also had evolved themselves to fully embrace what we call that duality of masculine and feminine energy. So there was no more conflict within themselves when it came to these two energies, and they were beautiful avatars, beautiful embodiment of that. And one of the reasons why Magdalena goes by the name Magdalena, I go by the name Emmanuel, because we would like to also be like that. It's kind of an aspiration of that we have. And as we know, also what happened to Mary Magdalene in the early church's story, unfortunately, she was dismissed and treated as a prostitute and God knows what else. I think the Catholic Church seems to change the story in recent years.
Yeah,
Now.
2016, they gave her whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
The word's not coming to me, but
She's a
they
saint now. She's a saint.
She's a saint, and
Yeah.
July 22nd is Mary Magdalene Day, and it's refreshing. Things are changing, times are changing slowly, but that was and we've been working with them as divine guides, and they've been helping us, both Mary Magdalene and Jesus, helping us go within. Find our truth, to find that Christ consciousness, Mary Magdalene, Christ light energy, to help us raise our vibration, eliminate the trauma, transmute the shadow into light. Part of one of my favorite stories that I didn't understand when I was little, and she was supposedly the woman that Jesus cast the 7 deadly sins out, recognizing now those were the 7 chakras. He was cleansing and clearing her chakras and healing her. Like, we work with the chakras now, and she actually taught him Kundalini yoga, and Mary Magdalene, trained Jesus. He would not have been even, well, okay, I don't want to be too, exaggerating here. We don't know for sure, but he would have been the healer he was if it wasn't for her. Why was she there, at his tomb? Why was she like the only woman there, at the end with his mother, with the crucifixion? Is because she was there to help, support his process, and to be there for him in ways that, of course, you don't find out until you do the actual research.
Yeah. And then there's a story that I learned recently. When Jesus was praying before he was arrested to be crucified, since we're going towards Easter, there is another story that's been hidden from the majority of the population. As he was praying, asking for his father, for the divine father, that's the story goes with, by the divine father. Now I know that probably was praying to both of them, the divine mother and the divine father. If this could pass, may it pass, but thy will, not mine, right? There was still one apostle next to him while that was going on. And guess who that was? Mary Magdalene. She was the last of the apostles to see him being taken by the guards when they abducted him to go crucify him. And she was there with him the whole time, pretty much.
Yeah. And so again, some of this, especially if you've known me for a really long time, you might be shaking your head like going, what? This is the kind of stuff we're sharing out publicly now, because we believe in the next 2 to 3 years, and especially in April, there's going to be a lot of people waking up and having these realizations, and we actually care. These realizations can be hard. I know there's many times I wanted to die as I was having these realizations of what I once believed to be true was not the case, and it sent me into a downward spiral in a dark place for over a decade. And with the way things are going now, there's predictions that, religion and all of this patriarchal stuff will be gone to the wayside in the next 3 years. And so how do you go from believing this to over here, where there's a radical mass awakening and extreme consciousness? So we want to help people, because it can create a lot of mental health issues. It can create a lot of physical health issues, and of course, suicidal thoughts, and just feeling separate or outcasted. A lot of people are leaving their communities, and they don't understand why. It's because your vibration is changing, and you're wanting to reclaim more of your sovereignty. So anyway, we're going to talk more about this on our webinar. Let's close with that, Emmanuel. If you were on the last show, we actually talked about doing this webinar next week already. Well, we've changed our mind. There's so many events. There's so many new clients also wanting our attention and deserving that extra space and time in our schedule. So instead of March 20th. We're going to be pushing it out one more week to March 27th. So I will be putting that out on my Linktree. I actually have a new website domain. It's magdalenagrace.com. At the time of this recording, I'm still getting it forwarded to my Linktree domain. So if you've seen my Linktree before, you can just go ahead and go to that. But it's magdalenagrace.com is where you'll find the registration link for our now March 27th at 5 p.m. We already have one person signed up, so I'm mentioning it, and I will reach out to that person as well. So any last words for you, Emmanuel, that you want to share as we close out? I mean, this is a big revelation, so if you have any tips or thoughts.
Yep. I was telling people when I had my encounter, it was a few years ago, and then look at the time it took me to completely come to grips with it. Some of these things will require a lot of inner work. So be gentle with yourself. If you don't even want to listen to it now, don't listen to it. Naturally, I believe that there will be forces around you above and beyond our very own that are going to be compelling enough that we're going to have to look at those truths again and find within these truths the motivation to move forward and to evolve to a better versions of ourselves. So take your time. There's no rush, but know that the pressure may be mounting if you ignore it. So just be on alert for that.
Yeah, and when in doubt, reach out. If you are watching this, whether it's on the replay months from now, and you're just like, we always believe people find everything in the exact timing they're supposed to. So reach out at my business line, text message line, which is 612-799-8791. So we can schedule some kind of consultation or support. And if you're watching this, since it is Women's Empowerment Month, I just want to do a quick plug for my 7-day women's microdosing transformation. It's women's only. It's going to be a 7-day with my colleague, Colleen, and we both together have about a combined 50 years. That's right, 50 years of health coaching, mental health, physical, spiritual, and emotional. And we're going to be working with psilocybin remotely. Anywhere in the US, you can be a part of it as long as you're a woman or identify as a woman. Please reach out to me or check out the website in the show notes, womenempowermentjourney.now.site. And if you catch this after it's over, it's March 20th through 26th, we will actually have an evergreen version as well. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you saw value in this message today, however controversial it might be, please share it with someone. Sharing is caring. You never know who may be struggling with the religion moon, who's struggling with what's happening on the planet right now and is looking for some kind of wisdom or knowledge. We're going to be talking a lot more about this because it's going to impact your health. It's impacting everybody's wealth. If anybody I've talked to anyway that's talked about financial issues, and we want to help you find that wisdom within yourself. So until next time, guys, here's to your best health, your best wealth, and of course, trusting your best wisdom. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe, download, leave a 5-star rating or review, and also please refer this to a friend you know who may benefit from this inspirational message. We hope to see you again. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or join my Facebook community. And if you are looking to manifest your best health, your best wealth by trusting your best wisdom within, please go to my website, www.microdosingforhealth.com. Again, www.microdosingforhealth.com. to quiet your mind, get into your heart, heal your body, and manifest your best health and your best wealth.